Kevin Smith.
How are
Hello.
you, sir? Excellent seeing you. Excellent background. Look at that Highlander poster. Come on, man.
Thank you so much for the reference in the movie. I was just like blowing your kisses.
Let me tell you a story. So we're shooting that scene in the theater, and I got the three boys there in the seat, and they play that whole scene out. And I'm like, cut. That's perfect. And then as I'm sitting there talking to them about the next scene, they're like, what is the Kurgan?
There can be only one.
What are you nuts? I was like, it's Highlander. Everyone has seen Highlander. And then I remembered that everyone in my generation has seen Highlander. And the
Yeah.
things that for us were indispensable and unavoidable if you had cable TV or if you went to a video store, for an entire generation of kids like Austin, Nick, and Reed, no clue what that movie was. And I'm like, oh my God, that was the first time in this business that I truly felt old, where I'm working with fellow professionals on a movie set. And generally speaking, we all speak the same language. We all have the same cultural references. Generally, the same things got us there in life: a love of Jaws, a love of movies, behind the scenes, whatever. And then to be sitting there with the next generation and have not have the same common frames of reference, but still see that the dream is alive, even though they didn't take the same path you and everybody you grew up with took. They got to the same place by a different path. Just didn't happen to include Highlander, which is fucking heartbreaking for me.
I feel your pain completely. My kids are like, why do you love Highlander so much? I'm like, they're like, nobody's ever heard of it.
Like because there could be only one, for heaven's sakes. It's an epic battle.
Absolutely. So 4:30, loved it.
Thank you.
Was fantastic. I think when I had to think about why I loved it so much, I think it was its proximity to Clark's. Not just in the fact that it's kind of semi-autobiographical, but also I wonder whether there's the same sort of lack of you didn't have to potentially worry so much about what people would think because it's not part of the viewer's universe. You have less stress about, the fan base and is this going to live up to? It felt like something completely unique and something sort of fresh. How did you kind of deal with that? Was that part of the process for you in deciding to do this?
A little bit, like when I was writing it, like in earlier drafts, Astro Blaster was Ranger Danger. Things were a little closer. If anything, there was no Jay and Silent Bob, but if anything, it was like, oh, this could totally take place in the
Yeah.
same universe. And then friends, when I started doing drafts, friends of mine were like, don't lean on anything. It's a sweet story. Like, let it stand by itself. So I started shaving out any tie-ins and stuff like that. I mean, honestly, I think what it shares in common with Clerks is in its DNA, it exists because we had a free location. Like,
Yes.
that's it. Clerks was all about like, oh, I can shoot a movie here. All right, great. I'll write a movie based here. And thankfully, I worked in convenience stores, so I had stuff to grab. 4:30 movie is similar in as much as we had just bought that movie theater 2 years ago, me and my friends, Castle Cinemas. And, I was like, we got a set. Like, this is a fucking location. We can make a movie here. Now, naturally, the first inclination one would imagine is like, from the guy who made Clerks, they hate working at movie theaters. It's ushers. But that to me would feel like stolen valor because I've never worked at a movie theater. I've always been on the other side of the counter and stuff. So that was out. And then it was more about like, well, I've spent a lifetime in movie theaters. Maybe you take it back. Since the look of our movie theater is ancient, hasn't been touched since the fucking 60s in Theater One. Same seats I sat in when I saw Friday the 13th Part Two, for heaven's sakes. That meant if you kept a camera pointed in, it was old. As long as everybody was wearing like period clothing, it was a period piece. You could get away. This is the closest I'd ever get to Merchant Ivory. So I was like, all right, let's just turn the camera inside and tell a story from the past. And in doing that, then I was like, well, let me mine back in time and what was the highlight of my youth? What was the highlight of my youth when crossed over with all my passions? Like not just like teenage love, my first girlfriend, but of course, movies and pop culture and my friends. And it took me to May 25th, 1986, when I went to see Poltergeist 2 with Kim Lochran. And this movie is kind of like a, fictionalized fanciful version of that date. And, a snapshot of life in 1986. And because of that, you're down and dirty. You're not thinking, you don't have a lot of resources. So it keeps everything intimate. And I think that's why the movie kind of works. I mean, I would never call this a workplace comedy because, yes, there are people in it who work, but we don't spend a lot of time with those people. I saw, there were many people who were very sweet who were like, this is Kevin Smith's version of the Fablemans. And then the New York Times was like, this is the Fablemans if the kid grows up to make terrible movies. And so I'll take both. You can see, like, me reaching back, obviously, and it's me reaching to that time when everything was on the cusp. The future was over there. We get away with a lot of, whorish old jokes about, boy, fucking this will never happen again, set in 1986. And then, of course, we know the present things do transpire and take place. So, it's this very soft, cuddly movie. Over here, we've got Nerf balls. When we were kids, the football Nerf ball, we played Nerf football. Couldn't get nearly as hurt playing real football. This is a real Nerf of a movie, which I'm sure on the internet means something fucking bad or sexual at this point. But it's so soft. There's no edges to it. Like, I made it when I got out of the nut house, out of the booby hatch. So I was real fragile and stuff like that. And this is the only movie I could have made at that time. So without any edge to it, I was worried that nobody would give a fuck, right? Like, I started my career and continued my career with people that curse and say funny things, very frankly. So not having that at play in this movie, like, made me go like, God, I hope it works. And then we submitted to Sundance like last November. And I was like, oh, we're going to be a shoe-in, son. Like, fucking, this is a movie about loving movies. This is the 30th anniversary of Clerks at Sundance. Like, how could this not go in? And it didn't go in. They were like, thanks, but no thanks. And I remember being like, oh my God, I ain't as cool as I thought. And maybe this movie fucking sucks. And like, I've lost it. Maybe the internet's right. All those people who are like, you fucking went woke and one broke or whatever the fuck, even though I've been woke since like the very first movie or whatever. So for a while, I kind of distanced myself from the movie. Not so much like, turn my back on it, but I was busying myself with other things. And even when we had the premiere, like, we had a premiere at Smodcastle Cinemas, and the cast came, Ken and the boys. And I didn't sit through the movie because I was like, I can't watch it fail because it's so soft. There's no edge to this movie, fucking no laughs or whatnot. And then when I came back when the movie was over to do the Q&A, Smodcastle keeper Ernie O'Donnell, I saw him first. I was like, how to play. And Ernie's like, no holds barred. He never sunshining anything. And he was just like, played fucking great. And I was like, are you serious? And he goes, they kept laughing throughout the movie. I was like, at it? And he goes, with it. So then I watched it the next 3 times. The audience. There's one in Vancouver, one in Los Angeles, and one in Jersey on Friday night. The Vancouver one, they ate it up with a spoon and shit. But then I was like, they're Canadian. They're so nice. They're just being polite. I got to try the LA audience because LA hates everything. And it played really well at the LA screening. But I was at that screening. So I was like, maybe not. I'll give it the third time's a charm. If it plays well in Jersey, then perhaps the movie is worthy. And it played like through the roof the other night. So it's nice to be able to kind of like reconnect with the movie. And this is not a story about shitting on Sundance by any stretch of the imagination. It's a story about how even at age 54, as an artist, I was put off by somebody else's opinion, put off my own work by somebody else's opinion. And that should never be the case. You can't be an artist and be put off by somebody else's opinion. But I've always been that wishy-washy fucking weak-willed individual that's just like, like, fucking, here, see this is my expression, my artistic expression. Everything about this is everything that I've ever wanted to say to you as an audience. It represents me, and I poured my life and heart into it. What do you think? And the audience is like, we fucking hate it. I'm like, you're right, let's kill this fucking thing now. I sell out on shit so quickly, man. And it was a reminder, like, don't sell out on the thing that you love just because somebody else didn't like it. Like, news flash, a lot of people aren't going to fucking like it, man. It's just like, when I was in the nut house, they did this thing with me, Kelly, my trauma therapist. And she goes, I was talking about fucking how sickening it can be to be so desperate for relevance and desperate to be liked across a career like I've been and stuff. And she said, like, well, Kevin, what's your favorite ice cream? And I was like, there's Oatly makes this chocolate oat milk ice cream is fucking amazing. And she goes, what's your least favorite ice cream? I was like, fucking rum raisin. She's like, why? And I was like, who puts that shit together in ice cream? That's a fucking terrible idea. And she goes, okay, Kevin, you just need to understand for the rest of your life, you will always be someone's rum raisin. She goes, you're going to be people's chocolate as well, Oatly chocolate, whatever the fuck. But there are people that just aren't going to like you for any fucking reason. Like, they don't need a good reason. It's just, you're not their cup of tea and shit. So it's important to remember that, man. This year I wasn't Sundance's cup of tea, but the movie's still lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. At your core, you are an amazing storyteller. verbally and on the back. No, but you are, and that's what drew me and audiences to you in the first place with Clarks. And I feel that's what we're seeing again. So it's lovely to see that you can be free enough to just not worry about what anybody thinks and just make what you want to make, because we'll watch it.
It is, that means, well, I can't do it without the audience, honestly. The only reason I've existed and subsisted 30 years in this business, it's the reason I get stuff financed to this day. It always comes down to somebody going, well, he's got that audience. And they refer to y'all as that audience. And that audience has powered me to 16 fucking feature films in 30 years. Nothing else, not the money from, of course, the money helps. Somebody gives you money to make a movie, but they don't give you that money unless they're sure that you got somebody showing up for you. And the fact that y'all have been showing up for me for 30 years means the absolute world.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And my kids love you as well. So I'm rolling it forward, and we'll keep going.
Every time a young person likes a Kevin Smith movie, an angel gets its wings. So I appreciate that.
Mate, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure. Excellent. Did you see, I know you guys are Burst, but we're from the same world. Did you see the star log in the movie?
Well, yeah, exactly.
It was almost Starburst though, because at first we couldn't track down log. And so I was like, there's another one. It's been in the UK forever and stuff. So it was almost close, almost you guys.
Next time.
For sure.